Hello, everybody, and welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. And of course, I'm your co-host, BMR. Joining me and welcome me back in Studio B, the original co-host with good old BMR on this afternoon programming is the legendary Tex Wesson. Tex Wesson joining us. You know about Tex, you've heard of Smith & Wesson. He's got some family ties. He's got family ties to the revolving company. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. And, of course, the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. And don't worry about Krista. She's joining me on Tuesday nights as my co-host on Beyond BMR. You can find us on Subspace Radio, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, KPNL Radio, and wherever podcasts are found. If you like our content, what we bring to you, the Super Chat is open. The Super Chat is a great way to help support what we do around here. And for those of you that view it later, the Super Thanks is also open. So go check it on out. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever social media platforms are. And, of course, our About pages on our channels on YouTube. And thanks for coming on in today. And I'll give you a quick lineup for everybody. As y'all know, on Monday nights, Texas Front Porch, along with Brandy, Tex and Brandy. It's on Monday, a new time now. A new time on Mondays, 7 o'clock Central, which is 8 o'clock in the East. Tuesdays is Beyond BMR. I come on with Krista, 8 Central and 9 in the East. Wednesdays, the Diva Dimension on Texas Front Porch, 9 Central, 10 in the East. And everybody, please give a prayer out to Miss Diva, recovering, doing better. She's been in the hospital. She had the COVID. So prayers out to our friend Daniel Diva. Thursdays, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, noon Central, 1 in the East with myself and Tex. Later on tonight, Thursday, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. They come on at 8 Central, 9 in the East. And if you need more boo mixed in with the woos, some woo mixed in with the booze, I should say, they come on again Friday nights, again at 8 Central, 9 in the East. And don't forget, for all you true crime buffs, Tex, Daniel Diva, Infamous Minds Saturday, 3 o'clock in the East. That's 2 p.m. Central. So with that being said, thanks for everybody for coming on in. I do greatly appreciate it. So does Tex. So does our guest. Robyn MoonShadow will be joining us talking about little people, Puckwedgies, proto pygmies, all these little cryptids here in North America and the world. That being said, though, first I'm going to bring up my partner in crime, as y'all say.
What's up, man?
What's up, Mr. Wesson?
Hey.
I don't know if you have lineage with the infamous gun company, but I thought I'd throw that out there for
not that I know of, but what is I do have family ties to the original Pinkerton detective agencies.
Oh wow!
So
I wonder if the Smith & Wesson was the revolver of choice back then, if they came out at that time period.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. They were pretty popular back then.
Pretty popular back then.
Yep.
Yeah. And Tex will probably be with us right up to the 5-minute break. He's got the things he's got to do, nothing serious. So thanks for coming on, Tex, at least for doing the first half of the show, because I know you wanted to at least sit in for it before you had to take care of your business, because we got a great guest, Robyn MoonShadow. We're going to be talking to some little people, some Puckwedgies, maybe these miniature trolls or what have you. She's a fantastic guest. She was on last year and was such a popular show that I'm kind of mad at myself for not having her back earlier, but you know how it goes. And thanks for everybody for coming on in. So I'm not going to waste any more time, and I'm going to bring up Miss Robyn MoonShadow.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Robyn. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thanks for taking time out. You were scheduled, maybe a month ago, you were scheduled to come on, and everybody was sending me an email or making a comment. We can't wait to see Robyn. And then, of course, you had things go on, life happens, and we had to reschedule you.
Yeah, I threw my
So,
back out. I just woke up
yeah,
that way. I did try. I put goop on my back and heating pad. And I just couldn't sit in this chair because it was hurting. And went right into my lower back. It was hurting so bad, and I had to kind of give up the ghost. But and I'm really sorry about that.
well, you know what? I forgot what we did as a replacement, but no worries. With live, hey, when you do live streams and book people out a month in advance, life happens.
Yeah.
Certainly, life happens for all of us. I've missed my own show on a couple occasions for knee issues and text. It all happens, but it's okay.
Thank
It's,
you.
it's what makes the world go around, right? So for a lot of the people that don't know you or follow you, I mean, I don't know that there anybody that doesn't. Why don't you walk us through? We're talking about little people and all these other factions, I guess, in the forest. And you have a very interesting background. I didn't put it all up. You sent me your bio. It was probably 2 paragraphs long, so I
Yeah,
had to
it's short.
condense it. I had to content. Yeah, it was like a half a pamphlet. You could probably sell that on Amazon for $10.
Yeah.
With that being said, why don't you give everyone a brief introduction?
Well, I'm Robyn MoonShadow. MoonShadow is my indigenous name. I was given that in my 20s. I like to say, well, I was hoping for some kind of an animal name. My elders gave it to me. As us Métis, a lot of us aren't born with an indigenous name, and we can receive it later. So an elder gave me that name. Like I said, I was hoping for some kind of an animal name, but we were having a potlatch, or we call it a potluck, but it's potlatch, where everybody brings something, and everybody in the family comes, and everybody's cousins and so on, and friends, and anybody who was Métis in the area come over and say hello. So some of our elders from way up in Sault Ste. Marie came down, and we are always talking about indigenous names. And so I asked one of the elders, can we have an indigenous name? And we say, okay, you come back in a bit and I'll think of it. So each one of us went up and got an indigenous name. And it was, you go, you talk to them for a few minutes, you go away, you come back, they give you a name. And everybody was getting animal names. And I'm very excited. I want an animal name. And I get MoonShadow. And I'm thinking, MoonShadow. And like, okay. And it's, your names are a gift. So once you're given a name, just like your birth name, you can change it if you don't like your birth name, but you're stuck with it now. But you think about it, and I understood it, but I talked to him. I said, why MoonShadow? He says, it's what you've been through in your life, and there is always light behind the darkness. So it's kind of an inspirational name. So if you always keep that in mind, things are going to get better, and there's always light behind the darkness. And if anybody asks you about your name, you tell them that. So
That's very interesting.
yeah. Well, I was raised on a milk farm, big milk farm. When I was a kid, we had 500 cows, and
Wow.
we do like 250 in the morning, 250 at night. And it was at the base of a local mountain. Well, there was two mountains. One was bigger than the other. And I was on about a quarter of a mile from a lake. So over the years, as we've talked, everybody's like, you're a mountain person. I was like, well, I was at the base of a mountain. It's close enough. I was like, okay, well, I've not thought of that before. That's just where you live. So my parents had a lot of property for the cows. And then behind that, there was 500 acres, which included these mountains. So as I grew up, this whole place was my playground. So I'm the youngest of five, and there's quite a bit of difference between my brother and I, like 9 years difference. So as I'm getting older and everybody else is moving out, I got nobody to play with. So I often say I know what it's like to have a big family and be an only child, because it was just me at home. So I used to go roam in the woods all the time, all the time. And when I was 13, I had my first Bigfoot encounter close to my parents' farm. And lots of things, because it's a mountain area. So, I mean, we've seen cougars, but they had a collar on them. That was when the government put them out to see how well they were doing. And the whole family saw those. And then when my niece was about 2 years old, I had a cousin over, and we were taking her for a walk in the field, which was directly in front of my parents' house. And there was a very rocky ridge at the end of this field. So we're talking about the size of a football field. And we see this huge gray and white cat. Well, it was huge to us. This big gray and white cat, just very sleek, great big long tail. And we go running back to tell my parents. And, well, where did you see this? Of course, it was gone. And they're trying to convince us, well, it's a lynx. And I was like, well, lynx aren't gray or white in the summer. They're orange, and they look like a very large bobcat. So we didn't know what we saw. And it wasn't until years later that I actually saw a picture of a snow leopard and said, that's what we saw. We don't have snow leopards here.
Mm-mm.
They're around the Himalayan area and Asia. So we always figured for years somebody had a pet that they weren't supposed to have, and it got out. But things like that have always happened to me. That's very unique. My cousin remembers it. My niece, she kind of remembers it at 2 years old, because she was 2 when she saw it. And she kind of remembers the day and the surroundings and seeing, a really big cat. But it's she was 2. But
Right.
like I said, things like that's always happened to me. So, and I've always been interested in cryptids since the age of 5. Okay, my whole family was. It's just I'm the one that pursued it. So I always wanted to work with animals. I was offered a job at the local zoo 3 times. My mother kept saying, no, you're going to get hurt. The owner of the zoo said, no, we'll have her work with baby animals. Mother's like, no, because then you'll have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, I'll go with my brother, because he worked in that area. Nope, you're not doing it. Which, even see, to this day, I'm still resentful about it.
Yeah.
But just, we practically, with me, I lived at the library, the zoo, the woods, everything I get a hold of. So after I graduated high school, I went to college to become a vet, and you take animal sciences. So with that, you learn everything. Unfortunately, I didn't graduate because I ran out of money. It was different then, where it was very hard to get any kind of a student loan whatsoever, and you're paying for your own money. And my professors were very good. They tried to help and talking to everybody they could, but it just didn't work out, which was sad. It's different now. Now I would have to, spend 10 years. But yeah, I'm too old for that now.
You're never too old.
Yeah. Well, and time-wise too.
Yeah.
But and the only place now to even go to any kind of a vet school is in Guelph, and that's way on the other side of Toronto. That's like that would be a 6-hour drive. So yeah, it's not going to work out. But I've always retained everything you learn. So, and I learned my tracking skills over the years since I was little. I could tell you how that started. I watched an episode of Sesame Street where they had threw out water, and they see what animals would walk through the mud during the night. And that's how that started, because I'd go out to the garden, because it was a very large garden, and after the rain and see, and I always wanted to learn more about it. Now, like 6, 8 years old now, and that's how it started. So we get to talk to hunters, and this is just, it's, you never stop learning about tracks. So yeah, I'm a professional tracker now. So, and I incorporate all of this in my field research. And like cryptozoology was just awesome. I mean, I wanted to find these animals to prove their existence, not for fame or fortune, because obviously we're not going to get rich,
Right.
just to protect them,
Yeah.
because we don't know if these are small pockets or this might be the very last one in existence. And it's important that they're protected. So I've always done this all my life. I did have a short little break where, as an adult, well, I have my kids and I looked after them, and they're in their 30s now, and after they're all moved out. Okay, that's it. I'm back at it now. So, and I've
So
I've been doing this nonstop pretty much since I moved out of the house.
when did you start running into the little people and the Puckwedgies and stuff?
I was asked to write a blog by the Curious 14 blog. It is no longer in existence. But I was talking to a gentleman on there, and he asked me to come and write a monthly blog for the blog. And I said, okay, I'll do it. Do you have any ideas of what you'd like? Well, no, just whatever you like. So my first blog was on a deadline, so I wrote about the black bobcats and melanistics. And then I got an email a little while after that from a gentleman in Alaska asking me if I knew about the little people in Alaska. I had heard about them, but I didn't think the interest was very big. But I was like, okay, well, let's try this. I know they're not a cryptid. They're a sub of cryptozoology because they're a little unknown hominid. Okay, well, let's look about this. So I did, and it just, the domino effect, and it still happens now. So I wrote the article about the urchin wreck, the little native people in Alaska. And within just a few months, that article, the blog, had thousands and thousands of views on it. And it was actually translated into 6 different languages. And I'm like, well, okay, there's interest in this. And as this has happened, people are contacting me about their legitimate little people sightings from all over the place. And I'm like, now this is something I'm going to seriously look into. And this is going on 8-9 years ago. And it's still happening today. Not quite as much now, but it's starting to pick up again. I mean, like during COVID, there was nothing, not even, it was dry. Let's just say it was dry. Because I know, I'm aware that being a hominid, they could get COVID too. So with the little people, they would have known what was going on. Maybe not all of them. Same with Bigfoot. They know that we're acting different and something's going on. So they're really going to stay clear of us. But yeah, I've been doing it nonstop ever since. I do go on research trips all over the place, like here, Canada, and the US. I mean, for next year, I have a trip to California planned. And in 2025, there was talk about us going to the Nahanni Valley, which is a place I want to go. But unfortunately, we think time constraints, we're not going to be able to get enough money together to get there at a certain time. So we're going to go to the Fraser Valley instead. Like, this is the area where Jacko was caught.
Wow. And I heard that the Nahanni Valley I've heard stories out of there that it's very, I think there's another name associated with it for a lot of people.
The Headless Valley.
Yes.
The Headless Valley. Yeah. I mean, my cousin's husband, this is back when I was really little, 4, 5, 6 years old. He used to be a hunter, guide, and fisherman. And he actually went to Nahanni Valley, and he says it's very primal because it's very untouched. He says, and there's a certain, what was the word he used? He said it was ominous. Beautiful, beautiful, but a little ominous. And the Dene, who are my people, I'm Métis Dene, would tell him stories about the Headless Valley, the Naha people, the little people, the Bigfoot up there, possible dire wolves, and even really old stories about a couple of mammoths
Mm-hmm.
still being up in these areas because there are some natural hot springs up in these areas. There, when everything is covered in snow, this place is still green. But it is a dangerous place, and I was aware of that. I still want to go.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list too.
Yeah, because I still want to go. Uh, I'll get there. I'll get there eventually. But I'm not going by myself because I would need guides.
Yeah.
And really big bears. Things are like double size up there, and I'd
Yeah.
have to have guides. So it will take a lot, but I will get there.
Robyn, I was going to ask you because I'm very interested, of course, in this subject, and I was doing a little research on this, looking some things up, and from what my understanding is, where I live in Michigan, I understand that the little people, a lot of them, um, First Nations or what have you, spoke of the little people in Lake Superior.
Oh yes, the little people around Lake Superior. Yeah, and you are supposed to have puckwedgies in your area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to have them too. But if you have the hairy little people or the native little people in that specific area, you're not going to have puckwedgies. They don't like them either, and they will drive them out.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into both subjects, but we'll concentrate first on little people because puckwedgies are totally different. They actually do not like humans. They will
They don't.
actually attack you, correct?
Yeah.
And where the little people, they're more now. This is what I gathered. They're a little more reclusive. They'll still look at you, but they really want nothing to do with us. Is that correct? Or
That's pretty close. Yeah, I mean, some little people, they will help you out. Stories from Alaska, where they will help lost hunters, help kids find their way back home, things like this, because they love kids. And with the puckwedgies, they don't care. They just don't like us at all. It goes back to Mo Shop, the giant. I don't know if I told the story the last time.
yeah, well, please do.
But he was a giant. And the people and the indigenous people loved him and they worshiped him. Now, he was married to Squint, who was also a little person. Don't ask me about how that would work about them having kids. But the Puckwedgies was jealous of Moshop because the people loved him and he was getting all the attention. Now, before that, the Puckwedgies were okay, but they were like clumsy little things and they were still getting into some kind of a mischief and well, we get out of there and whatnot and don't be causing trouble today. And they were jealous of Moshop. So they made a plan on how they were going to get back Moshop. So him and Squint had children. They had two boys, and they plotted out that they were going to kill these two boys to get back at Moshop. And they did that. They killed both of these boys, who were giants themselves. And this is how it starts. So Squint's upset. She goes, talks to Moshop. We got to do something with the Puckwedgies. They're being just awful. They're terrorizing everybody. So they go and they get rid of the Puckwedgies and half of the Puckwedgies. So whereas Squint and Moshop are dealing with these bunch of Puckwedgies, the other Puckwedgies are still terrorizing the indigenous people, running them into the woods, setting fire to everything. And excuse me, Moshop, he finds out what happens to the children. And now he's really mad and he starts throwing Puckwedgies everywhere. And this is how they get into around the Great Lakes region because he threw them there. And he's so devastated by the loss of his two sons that he goes away and you never see him again. Now, the other ending to that story is that he goes and he turns into a whale. Now, Moshop was a real giant, because he would go out into the lake and actually catch whales and bring them back for the people to eat. So, actual giant.
Can I ask you a really quick question before
Yes.
you continue? How did the Puckwedgie, I mean, the sons of Moshop were giants themselves, correct? How could something as small I'm just assuming, speculating that the sons of Moshe were big giants, and how can something so miniature in stature kill the sons?
Well, they use arrows, and they would put the tips of the arrows in poison, and that's how they brought them down. Now, it's not the only time Puckwedgies have killed a giant. Uh, a different tribe has a story, but a giant. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was benevolent, again, loved by the people, and he was the strongest, and he loved the indigenous people, and he was a bit different than the other ones because he was friendly. And of course, the indigenous people like this particular one, and Puckwedgies get jealous again. So they listen and they learn, because Puckwedgies are not stupid. That's for sure, because they listen. And they have somehow found out that he was allergic to pine or pine nuts. And they knew that he would go fishing every week on a specific day. So as he's canoeing down the river, they're throwing these pine nuts into his canoe. And he's starting to get tired and sleeping. If anybody has allergies, you know how that makes you feel tired, sleepy, run down. And so he's not paying attention as he's canoeing, and the back of his canoe is filling with these pine nuts. And he's getting sleepy and sleepy. Now, the Puckwedgies planned this out. So as he's just about ready to fall off to sleep, he's reaching an inlet. So as he's rounding this corner, these guys jump into the Puckwedgies jump into his canoe and beat him to death.
Peace.
And push him over. And lots of Puckwedgies, and numbers can overwhelm.
Yeah.
So this would be the second time they've done this. So this kind of shows you the veracity of Puckwedgies, that they could do this to two giants, and how they think and learn. Now, I didn't talk about it on the last podcast, I don't think. I was in an area in the Carolinas I can't remember the exact name, but it was in the Smoky Mountains. And I'm a smoker, so we rented this little cottage for the weekend, and I'm outside and I'm having a cigarette, and I hear this screech noise. Okay, what was that? Okay, not going to pay any attention. And that was the first night. And I said, well, Bigfoot will sometimes rake things. So I don't want to think everything is Bigfoot, so we're just going to let go. So second night, I'm outside having a smoke, and I hear, Robyn, hey, Robyn, hey. And a little bit of laughter, Robyn. And I'm thinking, nope, heck, no. So I just kind of turned this way, and I'm finishing my cigarette. But I knew exactly what that was, and that was a Puckwedgie. And my American research partner, he's like, well, how do they even know who you are? How do they know these things? I said, because they listened. Because this was just behind this cottage. And I was like, okay, well, you can hear us talking from inside the house. Outside, that's how they know my name. So they do listen, and they do pay attention, because they're certainly not stupid. They're just nasty.
Hey, let me ask you, with the little people and the Puckwedgie, because I kind of get confused all the time with it. And they were saying Robyn. So are little people? They're not cryptid people. They're smaller. I mean, are they like mini human beings? I mean, I'm sorry if it sounds dumb. And as the Puckwedgie sounds to me more like more of a cryptid. It has nothing to do. They're not the same hominid. They're not the same, or is one a derivative of the other, like a different hybrid?
They're a subspecies.
Okay.
They're all little people. I mean, there's ones that I like. The mini trolls, I would say, are probably a different one, because they seem more, let's say, subhuman, as opposed to, say, gnomes, who are very human. And even Puckwedgies are still little people, no matter how nasty they are, and they look different, but they're still people. I mean, they got 5 fingers, 5 toes. And you go up apes do too. But
Don't they have like a
Coastal
porcupine
plains.
quills growing out of their back as well? From what I read, is that just
Oh no, that's just a thing. I
okay?
know that got started by a picture,
Okay.
but Puckwedgies will, kill animals and wear their skins. So I'm sure
Porcupine
that's
would be a
where
great
that
would
it would be. I mean, like
yeah.
they have quills and everything, but Puckwudgies have hands, and but they still think like people that I wouldn't want to call them simpletons,
Sure.
Right.
I
right?
would
But
think they would be a simpleton.
yeah, not quite as bad as say like a simpleton, but just very primitive,
Mischievous.
primitive,
Yeah.
and they could
Do you,
kill one.
do you think that they are related very closely to the Hobbit people that they found in that cave, the remnants of those Hobbit people not
Well,
long ago?
for Homo floresiensis and
Yeah,
Homo lozin or Luzon, sorry. Uh,
yeah,
I get that would depend on what part of the world that they come from.
right.
Okay. For the Hobbit, they are a small version of Homo erectus, and they suspect the same thing for Luzon, except Luzon has a particular toe that makes them adapted for tree climbing. They're not
Hmm.
monkeys. They are a Homo. They are little people.
Right.
So it would be along the lines of that too. Like I would only want to see a Puckwudgie just for a second, so get some kind of an identification. I do have a picture of
Right.
a Puckwudgie. It's not mine, but I have permission to use it. And well, they have no hair, which is odd because for the uh, Homo sapiens, uh, we lost our hair like 40,000 years ago, or excuse me, 40 million years ago when we started learning to run around. We didn't need all that hair for protection and heat, and it was kind of dragging us down. And it's around the same time where we started getting taller, where we could hunt and run down animals for meat instead of uh, stalking and things like this here. And of course, eating meat made our brain bigger.
Right.
And we go along those lines. But so uh, let's Bigfoot's a great example. He still has his hair, and I believe that he is a very ancient hominid because he still has hair. I mean, even his teeth are very ancient. Um, our very ancient ancestors had very big teeth, so they were big. They just didn't have as many teeth as ours to fill that jaw. I mean, you even see that in the PNG film where her jaw is just very square and huge, and we
Right.
also see that in our ancient ancestors. And with gnomes, excuse me, it's not the same thing. They have more of a jaw like ours.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
So with the Puckwudgie picture I have, uh, unfortunately, I can't see a jaw because it's hiding behind a tree.
Hmm.
Uh, um, I have a picture of a Cherokee little person, one to saw, and of course, jaw like ours. And the Mamie picture that I have, he does have a big jaw, and he's also hairy. Well, I shouldn't say he or she. I don't know what it is.
Right.
But you can actually see where the jaw is very square, like more teeth, less of them. They're grinding teeth for tubers and grasses and hard to eat foods. Doesn't mean that they can't eat meat. It's just that they were built for that at that time.
Right.
So, and with this descriptions of little people, you can kind of gauge by description how old they could be. Like I said, if they still have fur, they're very old,
Hmm.
unless it's something that was given back to them to deal with the cold. But I doubt for little people or Bigfoot that's the case. As with Bigfoot, they've always seems to have always looked like that.
Yeah. And I honestly, I mean, if you look, I mean, and all the other natural animals that are covered in hair. I mean, look at the even the great the great apes. I mean, they're still covered in hair,
Yeah.
and because I have a lot of people that's the first argument they say, well, why they got all that hair, and they're in this hot weather and stuff. People don't realize that hair regulates temperature both
Hmm.
ways.
Hmm.
You know, so it's like,
And with these animals that have hair, well, how come they still have hair? How come Bigfoot still has hair? Um, with the great apes, let's say with the great apes,
right,
that's a species that's never going to change. They're always going to be like that. They haven't recently branched
right,
off. So when they're gone, they're gone. They're not coming back. So once they're extinct, they're done. And with Bigfoot, um, again, it's always been like that. He hasn't changed. They may get a bit smarter, but they haven't changed because that's their ideal evolutionary form.
right.
We can get into the thing about cats and dogs and whatnot, but we do have hairless cats. We do have hairless
Hmm.
dogs. That's us interfering,
Right,
but
right.
that's their ideal evolutionary form. Like, and with animals and people is very different.
Yeah.
There is
If
an
it ain't
argument
broke, don't
right
fix it.
now where we're no longer evolving. This is our ideal form because we have controlled ourselves and our environment so much that it stopped us. And then the other side of it is, no, we're still evolving. Like I personally think we still evolve.
Mhm.
I do too. I mean, I think it's almost too slow for us to see it right now.
Yeah.
But um, you if you just look at the different people from different regions of the world,
Yep.
And I don't know if it's so much as uh, you may not look at it as evolving as adapting,
Yes,
but
this too. Yes.
I mean, because you look at the like
Sorry.
the Sherpas and stuff, and it always cracks me up to see all these people climbing Mount Everest and
Yes.
these, sucking all this oxygen, and you got these Sherpas just running like, they make this trip on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
and it's like, what,
Yeah,
what
because they have
something,
that gene that lets them
yeah, so,
tolerate the
something that
higher
we
altitudes. Yeah.
struggle to do, and it's a lifetime achievement. They're like, it's a work
It's
week,
nothing. Yeah.
you know.
And the other thing too is if you look at very old black and white pictures, pre 1800s to the 1800s to today, you see that a lot of us, our faces have softened.
Hmm.
Really
That's
quickly
true.
too, you mentioned something too, which has me thinking again. We're talking about little people. We're talking about Puckwedgies. For everyone just joining us, Robyn MoonShadow, great topic. You mentioned the gnomes. Now I'm putting out my Santa gnomes, right? Okay, out back. And you mentioned that the gnomes really are the most human of these little people.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
gnomes.
are
Yeah.
they? Yeah, are they really? I mean, are they literally like what I can pick up at a Lowe's? I mean, do they look like human beings? Just little odd shaped little fellas and
You mean
girls.
like if you were, do they
Yeah,
actually look
like
like these
yeah,
guys?
yeah,
Yes.
really.
Yeah, just like these guys. Well, for like these little guys, the gnome statues, whether inside your house, that original idea came from Germany.
Okay.
And the thought for those was if you get these little guys, that will attract real gnomes to your house.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yes. So the two most human are the native little people and the
Mhm.
gnomes. Because, well, I feel like at Scandinavia, Germany, places like this is where the gnomes come from.
Wow.
So,
Originally, this is where gnomes come from. With a lot of these little people, if they take a liking to you, they will stay with your family for generations.
Okay.
I've heard that. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you how many times where somebody will tell me, well, we used to have a gnome that would hang around, and great grandpa used to say that gnome's always been here. So, But we haven't seen them lately, and maybe he died. But just looking at with the gnomes, from what I gauged from at least 60 stories that I've gotten about gnomes and other little people staying with, taller families, they must live for about 100 years.
It wouldn't surprise me none.
Yeah.
That
at
would
all.
not surprise me either. And do they show themselves anytime, night, daylight? Are they nocturnal or?
Oh no, it could be any time.
Mhm,
I would imagine that they would have the same sleep schedule as us, especially if they adapted to our way
mhm.
or that family's way of life. And a lot of time, you won't even know that they're there. You just think you're having really good luck and your animals are flourishing. Well, sometimes there's a reason for that.
Well, how tall would a gnome be then? I mean, in your garden or on your property?
Well, a gnome is about 2 feet, and they really do look like gnome statues.
Wow.
I would suppose that the noses would vary. I mean, even with these guys, their noses kind of vary. I mean, like a little bulbous one, a little pointed one, a rounder one. It's just facial structures. Like all of us are different, but they maintain this body form where they're a little bit rounder.
Mhm.
And with gnomes, I know they're very colorful in all of their clothes, but there's very traditional gnomes who wear certain kinds of colors.
Yeah.
For we for their family, some would all wear red or blue. The woodland gnomes, they would wear more like natural colors,
Mhm.
because they get everything they need from the wood. They'll spin their own clothes, they make their
Yeah.
own shoes.
Yeah. You read my mind. I was going to ask you these little outfits that they come up with. Where they get the fabric? They get this just from the woods, and
Yeah,
I mean, okay, and they
and
spin this
animals.
from
Yeah.
Mother Nature and from other
Like I know
animals.
of an old story where they keep mice as pets. Mice are mice. Mice are great. They're great. Well, they're pests. Well, for us indigenous people, mice are little givers because they have their own little families, and they have a whole lot of kids, and they feed a lot of other animals. So they're kind of special because they do that. And it's always been said, gnomes keep mice as pets. Seriously, they keep a lot of things as kind of a pet. And one story I heard, it was about the gnome making some clothing from a mouse. And remember, they're vegetarians; they don't eat meat, but it's because it was his favorite mouse, and he
Hmm.
wanted to keep that fur with him. Now, it reminded me. I had a neighbor where I live now when I was a kid, and he just lived up the road from me, and they were. Well, he was Eskimo Métis, excuse me, Yupik Eskimo, and she was Yupik, and they had a bunch of kids, and we'd go and visit them all the time. And he had a pair of mittens made from a dog. Now that kind of seems macabre, gruesome to us, but that was his favorite dog, and he can keep his dog with him all the time.
Well, I would think they take advantage of just about anything they can. I mean, even roadkill. You know, um,
The Puckwedgies, yeah, I bet they would. With the puck, well, the gnomes won't eat meat because they're animals. But
well,
with
no, but I mean,
Puckwedgies
as
being
far
the
as
way they
hides
are,
go
they
and
might, yeah.
as far as hides go and stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
why not honor the animal and instead of just letting it rot? It makes sense if you think about it. To wear the pelt and if you find a dead animal to honor him and by using his pelt. Um, yeah, I guess it depends on how they look at
I
it,
guess
but
that would depend on the type of gnome. That is a great question, and that's not one that I have ever thought about with roadkill and things. But I will look into that because that's a great question. But if you're talking about Puckwedgies eat meat, they probably do.
oh
They
yeah,
don't seem to care. I mean, I've heard things. Well, they whacked the dog on the head. I mean, that's something a
yeah,
gnome would not do.
right.
With a little native person, that they might have climbed a tree to get away from it, or ran away from it. But like I said, Puckwedgies don't care.
It seems to me like the Puckwedgie would just because of their nature, would be out just to hunt down gnomes or little people, just because it seems like that's their mean spirited nature.
You would think so. And I mean, even other little peoples hate Puckwedgies. Just hate them. It's in where is it now? The Smoky Mountains area. There is a story that talks about two factions of little people who were very different going to war over the territories. And when you look further into that, you find out that it's Puckwedgies and native little people. And the native little people drove the Puckwedgies out. I mean, it's that bad that other little people don't like Puckwedgies.
Right.
But I don't have Puckwedgies here. I've never seen tracks of little people. What I get is the May. And I was lucky enough to see this little guy. Well, not personally, got him on my trail camera. And that's because I asked. And get a track. And the native little people, I haven't gotten them on the trail camera, but I do see their tracks. And they come out in the winter. And I don't go out an awful lot in the winter because it is so cold here now. But I'll go out on as funny as this sounds, a minus 10 Celsius day. But that's a warmer day in the winter. And many times that I've seen their tracks. Now, I can't go to this particular spot because my property is adjoined with the neighbors. And it goes from my property and across the field and right into I get the binoculars out and I can see this because, I got to see where these tracks are going to the base of a really big tree. And everything I read said they live underground. So that would make sense that if they're going to get to their house, they're using the bottom of this tree where their roots are lifted up.
Yeah.
So, and that was, oh my goodness, 7 years ago.
Wow.
Because I deliberately, practically ran through the snow to come back to get my binoculars and then went back and looked. And I actually might have a picture of these tracks leading to the tree. And, and that's where they stop. They go into the tree. It doesn't go anywhere else around. But yeah, it was just, wow, this is really cool because to me, that is a case of where it confirms that they do live underground. And I have seen it a few times since then.
There was a dadgummit, I can't remember the name of the movie. It's like the Firmament or something, but it was all these creatures that lived underground. And they would come up at night, and it was in a cemetery and everything. But it was done a little differently than most movies. I'll have to look see what the movie is, but I always kind of thought, well, if these odd-looking creatures, that hide from basically everything, that it was almost people that were outcast and that had something wrong with them and stuff, and that's where they went, type thing. But I thought it was very, very interesting, the concept of the underground living.
Oh yeah.
And I've always heard a lot of people talk about Bigfoot living underground, which I think if the circumstances are right and if the land is right, yeah, absolutely. If they find a cave, they take advantage of. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I agree because that would depend on the terrain and the circumstances because they're not going to put themselves in a position where they're going to get caught.
Right.
So let's say if it's going to be a cave, it better have a back way to get out. Mm-hmm. Things like that. Yeah. But as for living underground, would they take advantage of that? Yeah, sure they would.
Yeah. Why not? Why wouldn't they? But I think otherwise, if would not surprise me. Now I don't know if they're so nomadic, because it seems to me that they're not truly migratory.
Yeah.
Migratory.
And semi-nomadic.
Yeah, they move through. I think they have down here the weather is year round. They don't have to move as much.
Yeah, I found
they move through a territory, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I find here now, 20 years ago, because I've done Bigfoot research, like just I was 5 years old,
Right.
and we used to see Bigfoot tracks in the winter, and I haven't seen any Bigfoot tracks in this province in over 20 years. I used to snowmobile from one province to the other, and I would see in the winter Bigfoot's walking while everything's frozen. They would walk across the ice from like island or inlet to another,
Right.
and you would see these. And I mean, people I would go with on the snowmobile, it's like, who would be walking? And you see the track, and you have to take into consideration how cold it's been.
Right.
But nobody is going to be walking around in their bare feet across the ice. I'm like, oh, it's a Bigfoot. And they're like, what? No, it can't be. And it scares them. I'm like, why? If he was going to get you, what do you think he's going to do? I mean, like knock you off the snowmobile? No.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anything like that for years. But semi-nomadic, yeah, because they're gone here from the winter. Late October, like now, they're gone. There's nothing.
Robyn, this first hour is just blown by, and we're already on our 5-minute break. And I think Tex might have to. Tex, you still have to skedaddle.
Yeah. I gotta go. I got a doctor's appointment I gotta go take care of. So.
Well, Robyn, everyone, we're gonna be taking our 5-minute break per usual. Robyn, I've got so many other questions for you. Thanks for everybody for coming on. Thanks, Tex. I know you're gonna take care of that little doctor's appointment. Tex is okay, everybody. Just
take care, Tex.
He's got a little checkup to do. And this,
Robyn, I'll be getting in touch with you. Have you on the show sometime.
Okay, I'll be here. Holler anytime.
And nobody get up. Everyone get up. See a Tex. Everybody don't. If you get away to get a drink or have a smoke or something, you gotta watch our new 5-minute break. It's pretty sweet. And Robyn, I'll see you in 5. See everybody.
See you in 5.
Well, welcome back to the show. Great show. Robyn, MoonShadow, Little People, Puckwedgies, and other little people and cryptids, perhaps, that are in our forests here, all in North America and across the world. Before we get started, I want to thank Shelly for her super chat and also becoming a BMR pirate. Arr! Thank you, Shelly, new member, and also Ghost Dragons for his super chat. I do really appreciate that, you guys. Thank you ever so much for that. And don't forget, on Mondays is Texas Front Porch. Is new time for Tex. He comes on at 7 Central and 8 o'clock in the East. So go check him out on Mondays. And on Tuesdays is Beyond BMR with myself and Krista. We're on at 8 Central, 9 in the East. Wednesdays, Diva Dimension on Texas Front Porch. She comes on 9 Central, 10 in the East. And again, quick prayer for Danielle Diva, suffering from COVID, still in the hospital. They said they may be releasing her in a week, so she is getting better. So thanks for your prayers for Miss Diva. Thursdays, of course, is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob at 1 o'clock in the East on Thursdays. Also on Thursdays is the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. You can find them at 9 o'clock in the East. And if you need more woo with the booze, check them out Friday nights at 9 in the East. Friday, of course, is a place to be. And Saturday, Tex and Miss Danielle Diva do Infamous Minds. It's true crime. Pretty cool if you're into true crime. Check out Tex and everybody else. And once again, thank you for the super chat from Shelly. Thanks, Shelly, for becoming a pirate. Arr! And thank you to Ghost Hunter for your awesome super chat. That's I appreciate that so much. And with that being said, I'm going to bring up Robyn. Robyn, welcome back, and thank you so much for such a great show. Great turnout tonight. People are loving it. I'm loving it. I knew this would be a fantastic show. You know, it's not often that you talk with somebody that really, this is really the core of what you really do. I mean, you've had your Bigfoot encounter, and you, again, at the age of 5, you just started about this journey that's really expanded for you. And I can really tell the passion that you put behind your stories, the passion of which you speak of these little folk. It really, I can tell that you're very genuine, very sincere about that. And that's what I love about you. And everybody in chat's just loving you right now. Just loving
you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, if you have an encounter, please let me know. It helps so much research-wise. Of course, my goal is with the little people. Not I don't want to run into Puckwedgies again.
Mm.
But with gnomes or the native little people, I would actually like to sit down and talk to them best I can, because they do speak our language. Even with the Meme.
Mhm.
A few years ago, before I went on one of my research trips, I get the feeling that something is around. Not Bigfoot wise. That's a little bit different when you get a feeling that you're being stared at with Bigfoot. It's a different feeling, but I get this feeling, and I was like, okay, well, if you're here, let me know. But if you're too shy, just make an appearance on one of my trail cameras. And when I got back, I was gone for a week, and when I got back, I went and I got my trail cameras, and I get my usual suspects: deer and fox, raccoons, of course, and I get the picture, and I'm looking at it, and I'm really surprised. Like, I've been accused of it being pareidolia, and it's really not, because it's very obvious. If it's pareidolia, I don't even pay any attention to it, because
Mhm.
I don't have that where I see pictures in clouds and things. Somebody actually has to really point that out to say, "Oh, that looks like a bunny," and then I'll see, "Oh yeah, that looks like a bunny." But I don't have that. But this is really something, and it's because I asked. And it was about a week after I got this picture. I had to go into the fabric store and get some fabric, and the lady at the fabric store knows that I do this research, and she'd been waiting to see me, and she says, my son had a weird encounter. Okay, well, tell you it. She said, well, he was coming home, work from late, excuse me, apparently I'm muted today, uh, work late one night, and this little thing ran across the road, and she described it to me as being 2 foot and hairy. And they thought it was a chupacabra. I'm like, no, we know chupacabras are. I'm like, that's four-legged.
Yeah.
And so I pull up the picture. I said, do you think maybe it looked like this? And she's like, that sounds like what he said. What is that? And I went on to tell her, and she was just, oh, I said, well, it's a Meme. It's a hairy little person. And she just absorbed all that and just simply accepted it, which was nice. Is, a lot of times when you talk to people about these things, well, you're nuts. And I'll just say, go look online. You'll see a lot of people having these encounters. Well, where's the pictures? Right here, right
Right.
here, right here. So, and then you get kind of the same thing with Bigfoot too. When you have your first Bigfoot encounter, you go, I didn't, but a lot of people do, who are told they're not real, they don't exist, and you're crazy. You're seeing things. You need to see a doctor. Okay, that's what people are usually told, and then they don't want to say anything. And then
Yeah.
even when they do, then they're criticized for it.
Yeah.
So, when they do talk about it, give them some kudos, because it does take a lot for people to talk about seeing these cryptids, no matter what it is. And for a lot of people, they go through the what was that, or the fear, or no, that couldn't have been it. They go through the denial. And then when they accept it, you get two responses: either I never want to see it again, or I want to know more about it.
I know exactly the feeling, because when I had my first encounter, I couldn't accept it. I couldn't process it. Then I had to realize, did I want to investigate this further or forget about it? But I got to tell you, once you see something that's not supposedly supposed
Mhm.
to exist. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that Bigfoot probably existed as a young child, but you don't think about it as much, right? I wasn't a
Yeah.
researcher. I didn't like study it. I just thought every time a show came on television, I would watch it. And that was me, right? Until I came across something, which is kind of how I started up this entire channel, and made a lot of great friends in the community. One is in chat right now, Duke Sullivan, who pretty much set me on the path, because I called Duke. I thought his name was Brian Sullivan. That's how much I knew about Bigfoot. But I tried to get it. I thought I was going crazy, and I finally found someone cool. And Duke says, "Rob, no man,
Yeah.
You're not going crazy, my friend. So we've been friends ever since. And I wanted to circle back really quick because you as mentioned, I told you I recently bought a bunch of garden gnomes, especially for this time of year. I've got some Santas, some elves,
Yeah.
just holiday looking figurines. And you had mentioned that if you do put them out in your garden or about your house, that it will attract other gnomes. And I do believe that. It's yet, I mean, I just got these things a few months ago and I'm kind of waiting. Two questions. That does happen, but where I do live now, I don't live in the forest, but I do have about a 3 blocks away. I've got this expansive creek that runs for 7 miles where weird things have happened down there, right? And it empties into the Detroit River. So let me ask, does it matter where you live, whether you're in the
Nope.
suburbs or the city? Let's say that you live in downtown Dallas and you live right in Concrete City. Will they still make their way?
Yeah. If they're in the area and they see you, they'll come and visit. Now they do have a criteria. Uh, if they accept you and actually want to like live in your home, they have a criteria. Like you have to be friendly, you have to love animals, you have to be kind
Yeah.
to children. Now, they actually move. So if they're in your house and if you've done something to offend them, they will move. And they move at a certain time of the year, every year. So it's from about now till January. So that's like their moving period. So, and the brownies will do this as well because gnomes is a very diverse family. I mean, you have the gnomes, you have leprechauns, you have brownies. These are all part of the gnome family.
Would that be like goblins too, or is that something to
No,
pixies?
goblins are something different.
Okay.
I mean, goblins now go by a whole bunch of different names. But if you don't know what to call a little person and it looks a little odd, you might call it goblin.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these older stories that call little people fairies, they don't have wings. They're 2 feet tall,
Yeah.
very atypical little person without wings. Like what we think of fairies now, we think Tinkerbell, little tiny thing
Yeah.
with wings. But a lot of the old stories, they don't have wings and they're not this tall.
Wouldn't a fairy too be considered like an elemental?
I would believe so. I would believe so. Like I don't do a lot of like little tiny fairy research, but I do get
Sure.
some.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. My mother would tell me that these little guys, fairies with the little wings, she would tell me she didn't like them first off, and she was always told, even as a kid growing up, because there was some Irish in our family, that they are mean and they will bite you. She was always told that as a kid. Like I've never seen a little tiny fairy ever. Like I have seen a little person when I was 9 years old, and he lived in my aunt and uncle's house between the walls. And I had seen him 3 times over one summer, but I never saw him again. My cousins were aware that he was there, and when they did tell me about him, I didn't really believe him. I was 9, and the first time I saw him, I was using the bathroom, and it was just a pail because this is an older house, and he was in my aunt and uncle's bedroom. I saw the clothes moving. They had a dog and a cat, and I assumed it's one of those. But then he came out, and I'm looking at him, and just things going through my head, and I just finished my business, pull up my pants, go down the stairs. And on my way home, I'm telling my mother about what I saw. She didn't believe me. And I remember being offended that she didn't believe me because I don't lie.
Yeah.
Not even as a kid. That's not something we do. That's not proper. Well, with our native beliefs, you don't lie. That's just all around bad, not even a white lie. If you do something that's not so great, then you take responsibility for it. So a lying is just, it hurts everybody. So I don't lie, but she didn't believe, well, maybe, you're mistaken. It was the dog, cat, whatever. No. So this is my mom's sister. So then we go back for another visit, and my aunt believed me because she had seen him. And okay, the second time that I saw him, my cousin and I were up above the garage. And this is where she would store stuff from her brother so he wouldn't get into it. And I'm sitting facing her, and she's looking at me, and the little guy is behind me, and she's like, he's there again. And I just kind of, and he just peeking around between the inside wall and the outside wall, and he was only about 2 feet high. And then the last time that I saw him, we were outside and we were playing with the dog, and we had another one of our cousins with us, and he again peeking around the side of the house at us. And I get a good look, not just he's there, like he had no shoes on or anything, and he had little tufts of hair, and he was an off green color.
Mm-hmm.
So it scared my other cousin so bad. I mean, he ran into the house screaming and crying, just tears flowing down his face, and he just kept, the rest of the visit he kept tight to his mom. And we said, well, you saw the little person. Of course, then my mother believes me. He was just around the side of the house. Well, you better watch out for those. Like, no, he's fine. He's not ever done anything. Now, if my cousins were to put like chips or chocolate bars, pop, whatever, on the floor beside their bed, they'd be gone when they got up, and it wasn't the cat or the dog taking them, because they just wouldn't drink Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. I got a quick question for you from one of our audience members who's a good friend of the channel. So I'd like to get this out there before we continue, from Corey Cole. And Corey's asking quickly for you. Could you ask Robyn if she's familiar with what is called an apple sprite?
An apple sprite? No, I've not heard of them. I know about an apple witch. I was just in the area looking for them in September. But no, I've not heard of them.
Corey, Paranormal Pixie's in the house. She might have an answer to you, because I know she's into a lot of these things and is very fluent with it. So thanks for the question, and thanks, Robyn. So we were talking earlier too about, we mentioned about the goblin. Now there's so many. Again, for me, there's like 15 or 20 different names for everything, and I get they're different from little people. And like a goblin, to me, when I hear that, to me that's probably not a hominid. Is it? Is that more of a, again, maybe more like along the lines of a Puckwedgie, which is a little more creepy and it's a little more wants to cause havoc? Or is that just a phobia?
Yeah, the goblins, again, it depends on the area.
Yeah.
Again, there was a story about a girl. And I can't remember where it was because this was a while ago now. And she was kidnapped when she was really little. I think it was Argentina is where this happened, Argentina, where she called them goblins, but her descriptions were just regular little people. She claimed that she was kidnapped when she was little, but they let her go. But for about 5 years, I get the odd reports of what they would be calling goblins, and they look more like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings. Very lanky and pale, but much bigger.
So a lot of bigger. I want to ask you too about that. A lot of the characters from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, a lot of these things really do exist then, correct? This is not just some drawn up imaginary, or do they get this from the folklore? Did Hollywood draw this up because of what they've heard in folklore? Because I believe that like a lot of folklore tales, there's substance to that, and I think there's truth behind a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, some of it is folklore.
Right.
A lot of it is folklore.
Well, Howdy Weird probably has some fake lore.
Yeah. With Lord of the Rings, because it came from Tolkien, he grew up listening to all of these stories, and he took an interest in it, especially the story parts of it, where good conquers evil, and little people can do big things, and always have your friends beside you. And when he went to war, he lost a lot of his friends. So a lot of his characters were fashioned around people he knew. So he took everything that he knew and put them together to write Lord of the Rings. And if you're going to ask me about elves, there are 2 types of elves.
Well, it was next on the list.
Yeah, elves. Elves are real. Now, they're not the hidden people. As I'm told, hidden people are completely different. than either little people or elves. But there are like the little elves
Hmm.
that are probably a proto or a type of a proto pygmy. Just think of a mini version of Legolas. So even their appearance is different than, say, a gnome
Okay.
or Puckwedgie or a native little person. But they do have pointed ears. Now, I've never heard a case where gnomes have got pointed ears,
Hmm.
but elves do have pointed ears.
At
That's
least
no
in the
doubt for
figure,
hearing.
at least in the figurines, they don't. They're more human-like,
Yeah,
as you may mention. Maybe more of a conical or pointed head, perhaps,
yeah,
or that might just be the hat sitting
that's the
upon the head.
hats. That's the hats. Actually, I don't. Well, I do have that. I got that Santa gnome right there. But even with the gnomes and the Christmas gnomes, Santa Claus is a gnome.
Yeah,
I mean, take that hat that's folded over and it's conical. I
yeah.
mean, in very
No,
appearance. I mean,
absolutely it does.
like these could be a bunch of little Santas. Look at,
Well, the one that's in
well,
back of the one, yeah, in the blue and red hat looks kind of
yeah,
like a mini Santa.
yeah. But this is how it's morphed. Uh, but originally, Santa was Father Christmas, where he's an older fella, very tall and a long robe, but he still has that conical hat that's just folded over. So it's how over the years things have morphed from its original. So again, with folklore, you see that with folklore too. And
Let me ask,
there are tall elves too, and that's very Norse. I mean, they come from Elfheim in Norse mythology, and they are taller, lighter skinned people. They do have the pointy ears, and then you have the dark elves, which are very bad luck to see those because they live underground and
which one?
they're bad guys. The dark elves.
Okay.
It was in one of the Thor movies where they were dark elves and they were bad. But even Vikings, when they came to North America, they're always looking out for dark elves because that's very bad luck. It's good luck to see a light elf, which are the
Well,
fair
I was,
skinned people, but bad to see the dark elves.
I was watching this documentary about the Vikings and the warlords of the seas, right? And
Hmm.
they stumbled upon this island, which was inhabited by elves, and I guess the Vikings were scared of these elves because of the magic that supposedly they could bestow upon them.
Hmm.
Is there any element of truth to that, or
There is a story when the Vikings came here to Canada, which would have been Leif Erikson,
right?
and just a bit before that. So they land on an island in the north,
Hmm.
and they were called what they call them Skraelings, and they're not elves. They just remember Vikings back then were bigger people,
Sure.
and we were all average at about 5'5". Back in those days, even today, like anyhow. But Vikings are bigger people, so someone that they're seeing smaller than them might be considered an elf. But it ended up that these were actually Eskimo people. Now there is a story that when the Vikings came here, they encountered a race that was as big as them, and that would be. I'm just trying to think of how to put it. They were, say, proto Eskimos, where they were bigger. And I forgot the name of them off the top of my head. You have to excuse me, everybody. I got COVID, but I'm getting better. It was very mild, but everybody knows it messes with your head a little bit. Some of them brain farts. But they encountered those
you're
as
doing
well.
fine, Robin. You're doing just fine.
And they encountered some of those people as well. And I mean, like, and they did a lot of we'll say gross things because they didn't know any better because they were very primitive people where they would take seal meat and put it in their armpit to warm it up, and they would put or in their pouch in the front, and then they would put their kids in with the meat, and they didn't even have a form of language where it was just murmuring and very Neanderthal like, but they encountered those too. And that must have been a surprise for them to see someone almost as, as big as they were.
Right.
And this is
Right.
physical anthropology. I mean, anybody can look this stuff up to read this stuff up. But yeah, they were called Skrellings, but they were just the local indigenous population. And some of the descriptions lead you to believe that they were little people, but they weren't. It's just because the Vikings were so much bigger than us.
Throughout this show about the little people and talking about the Puckwedgie, and I don't think, and you mentioned proto pygmy, which I guess is a classification. I was reading somewhere though that is there by chance in any of these species are known to be shapeshifters at all?
It depends on your belief system. I mean,
Mhm.
even with magic, it's interpretive.
Mhm.
Science can't explain a lot of this stuff, but then again, science can explain a lot of this stuff. Like if we take a handful of salt and throw it into the fire, we get sparks. That might be considered magic.
Mhm.
So magic is interpretive. But as for shapeshifters, no, I don't think that they are. I mean, with the Puckwedgie and them wearing skins,
Mm.
that
Yeah.
may appear to be that way.
No, it would appear to be that way if you were to see them, especially if they're so little and they're running around. Because if you had, let's say you had a congregation in your property that, and not all wear the skins though, right? And some, as you said, they just go
Yeah,
bare.
some will go full Monty. Yeah.
And then you'll see one that has a little fox skin on where you think,
Yeah.
wow, maybe it changed into an animal of the forest, right?
Yeah. It's interpretive. Yeah. So yeah. And now with the native little people, they wear skins.
Okay.
Like the picture that I have, it appears to be a bear. It
When
has
you
that
get a,
texture to it. I sent the 3 pictures to you on
oh, oh,
Messenger. I did it
yeah,
on break, so I'm like, oh, I thought I sent them, but I didn't. But it appears he has a hat or cowl, and it appears to be a bear skin. The Puckwedgie, it's just a piece of his head, and of course they're bald. They only have little tufts of hair.
okay.
It's a bit washed out, but they're a gray tone. And then I have the May. He doesn't wear clothes, or she, because he's got fur. He's very primitive looking.
Wow. I'm gonna try. Yeah, I see. Let me see. I'm looking at this.
And yes, little people and Bigfoot do occupy the same space. There's no, they have no problem with each other. They share space.
Now, did you say the little people? Excuse me, I might have missed that. I was looking that up. The Puckwedgie and Bigfoot, do they get along as well, or they just stay? It seems like nobody would get along with a Puckwedgie. I don't
No,
care if you're.
I don't think the Bigfoot would tolerate a Puckwedgie.
And you don't want those on your property.
No, like just ignore them. Just ignore them. I mean, there is even something sinister about them. Even when they were calling my name, I knew it was a Puckwedgie because of how sinister it appeared to be.
So they said your name like in a sinister fashion.
Yeah, with a bit of a laugh, and it was more like a cackle. Now, I've had that happen before where I've heard my name called, but it was more in a playful way.
Yeah. Well, the ones that said Robyn, those were the little people.
Yeah, that would have been a Puckwedgie. Now, there is another story where the gentleman was out walking his dog and he heard them calling him. Like it wasn't quite, it didn't enunciate as well as I heard from what I heard, because it was like, come here, saying, come here.
Mm-hmm.
And for that description, that one seemed to be like about 4 feet tall, which that's not right. But they do piggyback, like right on each other's back and things. So yeah, you don't. If it gives you the creeps, don't even bother with it. Like I said, when I heard my name being called in the woods the first time, that was more playful. And this is, many years ago when I was just starting to look into all of these. And And some people are so very cautious about it, and it says don't pay any attention to it ever. Now, I regret that now, because if this is a playful little person, yes, I want to talk to them. You have to make friends with them first and come to a mutual understanding and trust. A friend of mine, he's no longer with us. He was an elderly gentleman, and he was Cherokee. And when he turned 5 or 6 years old, like his mother would go out every day, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, she would go out every day. She'd be gone for about 20 minutes. She'd come back. Where are you going every day? Well, nothing was ever said. So when he turned 5, 6 years old, she's like, well, you can come with me today. You're old enough. So she had some food stuff in a bandana. So she took this with her, and they go out and they put this food on a rock. Mm-hmm. And then they stand back about 10 feet. And he said, well, what are we waiting for? She's like, shh, just watch. Be quiet. Don't say anything. And this little person comes out of the woods. He sits on this rock, and he's eating a boiled egg and toast.
Oh, wow.
And it was the only time that the mother took him with her to show him, because she says, now you cannot never tell anybody. We don't want them hurt. But he wasn't allowed. Like he behaved. Mm-hmm. Indigenous, you behave. And he behaved and everything, but it was the only time that he ever hurt, his mom ever took him. Now, he said when he got older, I mean, he went out and everything, but he never did find him. So,
wow.
And that was in the Carolinas.
Okay. I got a quick question from one of our audience members, Penny Van. Ask Robyn what a 12-foot tall, thin, dark brown skin and haired being would be if it were human, was like a young adult. Anything here of anything kind of like that?
And not a Bigfoot, just because it's this thin. Well, the original stories of the skunk ape, like we're going back to 1920 original stories. The skunk ape original stories have him as a taller, thinner looking Bigfoot. Even his hair was a different color. So yeah, I do believe we have subspecies of Bigfoot. Now, as for that, can you give me the location?
Yeah, Penny, fire out the location. Just throw it in chat really quick.
Yeah.
I found too. I was doing a little reading. A lot of these little people too. Aren't they found in Canada? In like, I think I want to call it. What's one? The island of
Newfoundland, Nova Scotia.
Yes.
Prince Edward Island.
Prince Edward. Yes, that's it.
Oh yeah, there is a couple of stories from each of these places, where they're a little bit more mischievous. I know of a very old story from like the 1800s when they were building their house, and the women would go get the water to bring back for the men, and they would have a picnic or dinner and this type of thing at the end of the day when they were finished building onto this house. Well, one day the men went to get the water and they didn't come back. So an hour, 2 hours, what's going on? So it was like 4 men, 4 women. So the women go to see what was going on. And the men are down by the water, pails everywhere. They're half naked and they're just dancing around and being crazy. And the women think they're drunk. And then they hear a flute playing. And there's a bunch of little people like across the creek dancing around, playing the flute and having a great time about it. And, the women are just yelling to them, get out of here, get out of here. And they all run off and the men snap out of it. But there are a few stories like that. But the little people like to mess with the people from those 3 different places.
I'm going to be traveling up to Lake Superior. A friend of mine, he bought a cottage up at Lake Superior. And I think I'm going to go up there maybe in July when it's not as cold. Because believe it or not, that's cold. In the summer, it's cold. So, and I was reading about Lake Superior and the Little People, and how they would commandeer 6-person mini canoes, and they would actually go on Lake Superior. Now, to me, that seems like, first of all, how big is this canoe? And Lake Superior is probably the worst lake of all the Great Lakes to have a canoe on. Not alone, I've got to imagine this is only like a 4-foot canoe, right?
Or six. It usually comes to 6, 8, 12. Racing canoes or get up to like 20 feet long, and you just pile people in them. And
yeah, I'm wondering if people have actually seen these on the Great Lakes.
Yeah, Little People, the native Little People will go in a canoe. There was a story where it was called a stone canoe.
Okay.
And obviously it wasn't made of stone, it was zinc, but they would carve these things out of what at least appeared to be stone and go fishing. The urchin wreck, they'll fish, they'll spear fish, they'll hunt, and they're still seen doing that today. For Little People sightings, Puckwedgies and gnomes are the top two, and
Right.
then the third most I get from Alaska. This lady, she wrote to me from Alaska, she's a native, and said her and her sister were coming back from bingo one night, and this is a few years ago, and they saw a little urchin wreck getting water out of the side of a building from a tap. It was filling a seal skin, and turned the tap off, and they were watching this. Of course, they don't disturb them, but they know they're there, and they accept it. I mean, then you have the two types of people who are, they're afraid of them because, they're told to be afraid of them. And then the other ones who just completely accept it. Yeah, this is, all part of it. And they are a part of everything. And it wasn't like 50 years ago that the urchin rat were living side by side with the Yupik people. I mean, one of the last families to leave, they had a little boy, the urchin rat. Little People had a little baby. He's just a little tiny thing. And even in the story, they talk about how little he is. Yeah. So they're there to do some trading or talking to people in the village. And they just let him go off and play. And he got too close to a dog, or the situation was terrible, and the dog killed this little guy.
Oh,
and
boy.
They said, that's it, we're done. And we're going into the mountains with the rest of our people. Wow. But even on the census, and I've actually looked this up, they were registered as urchin rat people.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, that's cool.
I got a question from Duke here. He World Bigfoot Radio. Does Rob remember the story about Henry Hudson and his team drinking with the dwarves?
Oh, okay. So like Henry Hudson, if you don't know who he was, like Hudson Valley, the Hudson and Hudson Trading Company. Okay. So when he comes down to what is now the Hudson, he was told a story about the lights in the mountain, how the dwarves lived there, and that they could make really cool things. And so he sees the lights up in the hill on the mountain one night. So he gets some of his men, and they go up there, and they meet these dwarves. Now, these guys are a bit taller. They're at about 3 feet tall. Okay. And dwarves, just Gimli, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And they're talking and whatever else, and they make beer. So they give Henry Hudson and his men beer. And they must have put a hallucinogen in the beer because his men started acting weird, and they appeared to be changing their form and whatnot and turning into these dwarves. And Henry Hudson says, okay, that's enough of that. We're out of here. I mean, it wore off by the next day, but he didn't bother with these dwarves again, because if they didn't know about hallucinogens, that would have seemed like magic or hocus pocus or something at that time. But yeah, I mean, that was when I was first come across that story. I was like, wow.
Okay.
It's cool. But were they dwarves or gnomes? Well, read the description. If he's saying they're 3 feet tall, they're probably dwarves.
Probably. And Penny responded back on she asked that question. Remember, I said 12 foot. Rob, you forgot to correct the question for Rob. It was only 12 inches tall and not a
12
Bigfoot.
inches tall.
And it was near the William Wallace Monument in Scotland.
Okay, that would be about a foot. About a foot tall. There are lots of story in Europe, of course, about little people. And in Scotland, I have a friend in Scotland, and we talk about this all the time. She's never seen a little person, but she does get stories about being around monuments, grave sites, all of their old places. So yeah, I mean, at 12 inches, that's about a foot tall.
Yeah.
So a smaller gnome, a younger gnome.
Well, in general, though, when we're talking about like gnomes, the little people, what's like the ones perhaps would be in my backyard?
And you're in Michigan?
Yeah, the average size is what? They don't go over a foot tall, do they?
No, they don't go over 3. Anything over 3 is just a pygmy.
Okay. So I'm guessing a half a foot.
A half a foot tall, 6 inches?
Yeah. Or
6
taller.
inches?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that had to be bigger than that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. That would actually probably be considered maybe a tall fairy.
Okay.
So
well, I haven't seen one. I'm just trying to, now that I bought all these gnomes to put outside. Now, if I put them in my house, if I put them in my house, will they come in my house?
They might, but do you really want them in your house?
No, I do not.
Inside, yes.
That would kind of
see, for me, I mean,
I got enough creepy stuff that, materializes in my house.
I got cats. I'm good. You know what the Egyptians used to say about cats? About seeing ghosts and keeping evil spirits out. Because that goes back to Bast and fighting with the snake at daylight. And everybody remembers the original Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser?
Yeah.
And the cat takes a swipe at the mummy. Yeah. Just, that's what they believe. So, yeah. And cats and dogs do see ghosts.
Yeah. And with that movie, the first one was good, but boy, stop after maybe the second one, because then it started getting kind of
corny.
Just corny. Yeah. I mean, that's how it is, though. Once you have a successful movie, the sequels are just.
They lack something. They lack that punch that you got from the first one. Yeah.
I think the writers just get lazy because they figure they're going to make the money. Yeah, know. So, well, Robert, I know you're a little still under the weather. We've gone over an hour and 40 minutes. I really love this show. I know everybody in chat that's going to listen later loved it too. I really do want to thank you. And with that being said, where can we find you if we want to look you up?
I'm at Robyn MoonShadow's Strange Realms. I have a Facebook page. You can come on over and join. I'm unable to post any articles about new finds from animals, because that's what we do as cryptozoologists. It's not just about the Bigfoot or that type of cryptid, but any animal that's a newly discovered. Last year there was a new moth that was found here. Like, I saw it all the time. I didn't realize it was a new critter. I'm not an entomologist, so I did not know that this was a new find. But things like that are around us all the time. And I like to post those and keep everybody informed. Everybody enjoys that. I also post melanistics and albino animals because they're just pretty. But I can't post anything if it's news, because here in Canada we're being censored. I can read it, but I can't post it. And it's either at the end of this month or the end of the year. I won't be able to see any news at all.
Okay.
Like I said, we're being censored. So, but if you find something really cool and you come on over and join us, please feel free to post it. Just double check everything. We don't want to give people the wrong idea about or incorrect information, because if they are studying any unknown animal,
okay,
it may steer them off. But just double check everything, and you're free to post it, since I can't. And I do have a YouTube channel. I haven't been able to post anything on that. Oh, for a while, my internet was just so terrible. And I have fiber line now. It's good. I just haven't had the time to get all of those up there. I'm hoping that by next year, all my footage that I have from over the past 3 years, I can put it into a documentary and share that. So
Awesome.
yeah, you'll see us out looking for little people, Bigfoot. This year we went to Pennsylvania looking for apple witches.
Mm.
Virginia, we got there's an area there where the Bigfoot is kind of bugging the owner a little bit, and sometimes I get skeptical about that until you're there and you find tracks.
Awesome. You
Yeah.
know, what I'm going to do too, I'm going to keep following you, and I'm going to keep you abreast on my little gnomes that I'm going to be planning around outside. Maybe not this winter, we might not get anything, but I'm that's my new experiment. I'm going to see if I can get any of these
All
little
little
folk.
people like treats, sweet stuff.
Okay,
I
I'll
put
do that.
Pepsi out if you like. I've not tried a Pepsi, but
Yeah.
go for it. Deer will drink Pepsi. I've
I'm
seen
gonna,
them do it.
I'm going to do that, and I'm going to keep you updated on my
Yes,
little
please do.
experiment. I'm going to do that for sure. I would like to thank Shelly for the super chat and becoming a BMR pirate. Thank you to Ghost Shadow also for your super sticker. Thank you for everybody that came in today. I really appreciate it. And don't forget, the links in the description of this for me. My book, Bigfoot Mystery Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1. It's on Amazon. Just type that in a link on Amazon, or you can find it here on my channel. Thanks to those of you that have bought it. Please leave a review when Amazon comes calling, because it does help push sales of the book. It's all about algorithms these days. And Robyn, again, it was I'm kind of mad that I've only had you on. This is the second time, as I've been doing this for 2 years. I'm going to have you come back in the spring.
Yep.
Maybe I'll tell you if I got anything out of the gnomes. How's that sound?
Oh, that would be
See
awesome.
if they
Yeah,
pay me a
I'm
visit.
happy to come
Well, if they
back.
pay me a visit, I'll be calling you regardless.
Oh, you better call quick. Yeah. It'll
I'll
either be guess what happened or how do I get rid of them?
Yeah. Well, hopefully I don't get a Puckwedgie. I heard a quick story about a Puckwedgie, a group of them. This guy had a camper, a trailer parked on his lot, and they kind of got underneath it and they started tearing out all they really damaged it. They messed it all up, and really the trailer they couldn't live in it. There was no power, there was no nothing. I mean, they literally tore it to pieces, so to speak. I mean, not the siding,
they disassembled it.
They disassembled it from underneath. Yeah, I heard that story. I forgot, and I'm sure that's a true story.
Yeah, because they'll do that. Real quick before we go. This gentleman, I know he's no longer with his girlfriend, but it was her family and this particular little suburb that they live in have Puckwedgies. I mean, cats go up missing.
Mm-hmm.
And smaller animals go up missing all the time, and they know that it's his Puckwedgies. And he was talking to me about it, and they were causing some havoc and getting into stuff and doing things like that. And even coming into the house at night, I don't know, how do we get rid of them? I says, you could try to appease them. And the day after I was talking to him on the phone, and I bet I was on speakerphone, it was all quiet, and they give him some little bear statue on his front porch. And it was quiet. I said, of course, because they heard you talking to me, and they're going to offer you a gift. I said, don't believe them, because it's a con. It's a con.
Oh, wow.
You take this gift, you give them something in return. You're never really ever going to get rid of them now. So
I don't think so. Well, thank you for that little story to close out the show. Again, I thank everybody. Thanks for the super chats, buying the book. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Robyn, always a pleasure. We'll have you back soon. Me. You are rest up a little bit, but you're looking pretty good.
I feel better. I feel better. I think I'm over it. I mean, the COVID I had was mild, but but you just know it's COVID when you got it.
Yeah, I guess you know when you got it. You know when you got it, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robyn. Thanks everybody once again.
Thank you again.
And until next time, I will be on. What's today's Thursday. Yeah. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Have a great show next Tuesday.
Take
lined up
care.
for you
Take
guys.
care, everyone.
All right. Bye bye.
Stay warm.